You've taken the first step. You discarded the comforting lie of the millionaire mindset. You realize that the world doesn't reward positive thinking. It rewards cold calculation and scale. If you haven't yet seen our first lesson, the millionaire mindset is making you poor, you must pause this now. That lesson is the foundation. Without it, you are still operating with a servant's logic. Now we move from a mindset trap to the system trap. We attack the most sacred cow of modern finance, financial freedom. They sell you a beautiful image. They tell you to work hard, save diligently, stay disciplined, and in 40 years, you can retire. You can quit your job, live off your capital, and finally be free. This image is a perfectly constructed psychological leash. The truth is terrifying. Financial freedom is the system's most dangerous lie. It is not a destination. It is a prison sentence designed to guarantee 40 years of compliance and maximize the harvest of your life's labor. Why? Because the moment you accept a timeline of 40 years, you trade your present power for a future permission slip. You become predictable, obedient, and easily managed. The builders and architects of a system don't aim for retirement. They aim for dominion. Let me introduce you to the second bitter law of the Machiavellian Code, the illusion of the finish line. The fatal inversion, retirement versus dominion. The conventional concept of financial freedom is a masterpiece of control. It tells you to trade 40 years of your best health, your sharpest ideas, and your highest energy in exchange for a meager allowance in your weakest years. It's a deferred payment plan for your life. The system requires two things from you. First, compliance. You must work. You must obey. You must stay predictable. Second, patience. You must wait, proving you're not a threat to the current structure. The concept of retirement is simply the reward mechanism for the obedient worker. You are given permission to stop laboring only when your capacity to innovate, rebel, or threaten the existing power structure has diminished to zero. The true players, the architects and the dominators, don't retire. They transition. They move from building systems for income to building legacies for influence. They don't quit working. They simply change what their work controls. The system wants you to aspire to a life of leisure and comfort. This is the servant's aspiration. The moment you achieve comfort, you stop fighting for power. You become soft, predictable, and easily replaced. Dominion is not the ability to quit. Dominion is the ability to change the rules for everyone else. Pillar 1, the timeline trap, the law of accelerated acquisition. The core mechanism of the retirement trap is time dilation. The millionaire mindset preaches safety and linearity. Save 10% for 40 years. This guarantees that your greatest weapon, your youthful time, is neutralized and channeled into a safe account. The law of accelerated acquisition states, value is exponentially higher in the first 5 years than in the last 5 years of a venture. The conventional timeline forces you to focus on tiny, linear returns while surrendering the massive, compounding power of the present. Think of the two trajectories. The saver, the trap, dedicates 40 years to slow compounding. His money is held captive in slow vehicles, making him subservient to market stability and the current tax regime. He is a pawn in the market. The builder, the architect, dedicates 5 years to building systems of scale. He uses leverage and risk to force exponential growth. He uses the next 35 years not for retirement, but for unrestricted control, acquiring assets, influencing legislation, and multiplying his systems. He is a player in the market. The system wants your assets managed safely by their banks for 40 years. It wants your labor guaranteed for 40 years. It wants your fear of losing your nest egg to keep you quiet for 40 years. To escape the retirement trap, you must reject the 40-year timeline entirely. You must substitute patience, passive waiting, with strategic stillness, active calculation, as we discussed in the first video. You must pull your goal forward and compress the acquisition phase into a decade or less. Pillar 2, the softness tax, the principle of necessary tension. The promise of financial freedom is the promise of perpetual comfort. This is the ultimate softness tax. The principle of necessary tension dictates that power is only maintained when there is resistance or growth to command. Once the average person reaches their number, they stop being dangerous. They prioritize protection over innovation. They become a static target for economic entropy. Look at the history of powerful families and empires. They rarely fall due to external attacks. They fall when the third generation, raised in complete comfort, loses the strategic tension required to maintain control. They trade the grandfather's ruthlessness for the softness of entitlement. The system knows this biological reality. It sets the retirement goal high enough to require maximum effort, but delivers it only when you are too soft to reinvest that freedom into anything that challenges the system itself. The goal is not to stop working. The goal is to stop selling your time. The true measure of freedom is not how many days you can relax, but how large a structure you can build that functions perfectly in your absence. The architect views a life of constant leisure as a tragic waste of leverage potential. He views retirement as strategic stagnation. You must reject the pursuit of mere comfort. You must seek strategic positioning, a place where your systems are so well built that your absence accelerates, rather than slows, your growth. Pillar 3. Freedom as a leash, the law of strategic dependency. The most insidious part of the retirement lie is that it conditions you for a life of dependency. To achieve financial freedom, you must depend on 3 uncontrollable factors. First, market stability. Your nest egg must perform exactly as predicted for 40 years. Second, taxation. Future governments must not raise the tax rate on your wealth distribution. Third, longevity. You must not live too long, or you risk outliving your system. The law of strategic dependency states, true freedom is not found in independence from money, but in controlling the dependencies of others. The elite do not aim for independence from the market. They aim to influence the market. They don't try to escape the tax code. They use the tax code as a weapon to shield their assets. In fact, the moment you have a large sum of money saved, your freedom fund, you become hyper-dependent on the system's stability. Any chaos, any inflation, any major policy change becomes a threat that forces you back into obedience and fear. We are entering a period where inflation is no longer accidental. It is engineered. It is a lever used to transfer wealth. The greatest threat to your savings is the very system you relied on to protect it. If you want to know how to not just protect your capital, but turn this engineered chaos into immense power, you must understand the rules of financial warfare. That is the subject of our next lesson. Pillar 4. The transfer of value, the price of compliance. The retirement trap is simply the most efficient mechanism for transferring the most valuable currency, youthful energy, from the individual to the institutional players. The system sells you the dream of a peaceful future to distract you from the reality of your present harvest. Think of the value exchange. The worker, 40-year plan, gives up peak energy, risk tolerance, time to pivot. The worker, 40-year plan, receives a fixed sum paid decades later, subject to inflation. The builder, 5-year plan, acquires systems, leverage, control over others' time. The builder, 5-year plan, creates exponential cash flow and the ability to influence policy. The average man pays the compliance tax for 40 years. He submits to the corporate structure, accepts the median salary, and avoids any move that might jeopardize his long-term plan. He becomes a predictable data point. The true builder pays the architect's fee only once, the cost of building the initial system and absorbing the initial risk. After that, the system pays him the fee indefinitely. The key to escaping the retirement trap is to realize that compliance is the most expensive price you can pay. Your life is not a currency to be spent on obedience. It is a force to be structured for dominion. You must stop seeing the pursuit of wealth as a gradual accumulation of savings. You must see it as a calculated, aggressive acquisition of control, transformation, and final command. You have seen the leash. The promise of financial freedom is nothing more than a glorified, long-term compliance contract. The architects of the system do not retire. They transition to new forms of power and legacy. You chose the path of the code because you understood in Lesson 1 that success is not found in comfort, but in calculation. Now, you must internalize that the goal is not a finish line, retirement, but a pivot point, dominion. Your objective is not to be free from labor. It is to be free from the obligation of selling your time. You must embrace the law of accelerated acquisition and compress your timeline. You must substitute the soft comfort of saving with the strategic tension of building scalable, autonomous systems. The next great threat to your future is not market volatility. It is the engineered erosion of your savings. We must now equip you with the tools of financial defense. The next essential lesson in the Machiavellian Code playlist is your savings are a weapon for the rich. How to exploit inflation to build wealth. If you're ready to reject the 40-year compliance contract and begin acquiring control now, then this is your command. Subscribe. Continue your initiation into the code. The system wants you to fear the future. We will teach you how to command it.